Welcome back to 535. I'm Brody Mullins here with my colleague Sue Davis. Today we're lucky to have Amos Snead, longtime friend and colleague from Capitol Hill, now CEO, founder and CEO of Dux Group. Thanks for joining us, Amos.
Hey, glad to be with both of you, and congrats again on everything you've launched. It's
Thank
fun
you.
to watch along all your growth.
Thank you.
I do think we have to clarify up top too what kind of ducks we're talking about.
Dux. It's Dux. It's Latin. D-U-X. It's Latin for leader. So we work with leaders. We recruit leaders. A lot of C-suite activity. The Dux Group is a strategic communications public affairs firm. We specialize in highly regulated industries. So a lot of what's happening here on Capitol Hill.
So we're here today to talk about your book. We can get that on screen. Yes, I think so. About your journey through Capitol Hill, starting
Yes.
the young Capitol Aide. Today on this show, every day on the show, we have lots of young Capitol Aides watching who probably want to figure out how to get from where they are right now, answering the phones, dealing with constituent mail, constituent services, up to where you are now. So why don't we start with your journey, how you got from Alabama to Washington, D.C. What was your first job, and how did you move up?
Thank you. I did an internship in Washington, D.C., and I grew up in Northeast Alabama. And when I did that internship, I knew, I'm going to spend the rest of my career here. This is what I will do. And fast forward 20-something years later, I still live on Capitol Hill and raise my family here. But my first job was a staff assistant on the Energy and Commerce Committee. Now, if anyone who knows, I had the luxurious job of answering the phones, greeting guests, and then I had to make sure all the pictures and the microphones were straight on the dais before committee hearings. Now, at the time, my grandmother thought I was advising the president, but that's where I started. So I started as a staff assistant on the committee, and then I moved up to the press office, and I started answering phones there. So I spent my first 2 to 3 years on Capitol Hill just answering phones, and then later got an opportunity to go work at the time for Mr. Roy Blunt, a Republican from Missouri, who was the House Republican whip. And in most things on Capitol Hill, timing, you have to be in the right place at the right time. I got there right when digital was exploding, and Republicans, and especially Republican leadership, were leaning into that. So it was a great opportunity, and that was my Hill story.
Yeah, and I think I met you back then. I think I was with Congress Daily or with Roll Call. I don't remember. You were working for Congressman Ken Johnson. I mean, inside joke that no one will get.
3 people thought that was hilarious.
Now, Brody, I won't repeat what Ken Johnson would say about you when the phone would ring and it would show up as Brody.
So tell us about that first job at the Energy and Commerce Committee. What did you learn there?
What did I learn there? The Energy and Commerce Committee has broad jurisdiction, right? So if you're sitting up front and you're answering phones, there's 2 different ways you can be a staff assistant on Capitol Hill, right? The first way, you can pretend you're still in college and you can show up at 9:01 and your pants are a little wrinkled, or you can take it seriously and ask every person who's coming in for a meeting, who are you and what do you do? And so when you're at the Energy and Commerce Committee, I mean, there were the leaders of technology, the leaders of energy, the leaders of healthcare who were coming in for these meetings. So what an amazing opportunity, 23, 24 years old, to realize, oh my gosh, everything in this country, actually globally, at some point or another will come through Capitol Hill. So I just learned there the vast scope and the vast reach of it. And also, I will say credit to the Tozan operation. They ran an incredible communication shop. So it was just great to see that work and legislation start in the committee and end up passed on the House floor in the effort that went behind that.
Part of what I think is interesting about your career is you came in through 2 lanes. You did committee work, policy focused work, and you also had this experience in leadership, which is much more strategic, communications. Do you think today, is those still the main 2 paths on Capitol Hill? Do you want to be a policy person, or do you want to be a comms person, or can you do both?
I think there's about 3 different paths you could do on Capitol Hill right now. Do you want to go the scheduling route? Do you want to go the policy route? Or do you want to go the communications route? And it's kind of tough to move from each of those once you start, because if you're a communicator, policy staff looks at you a little different.
What do you know?
Yeah, or if you're the legislative director, like, why are you talking to the journalist? So I think those are the paths you go on. Now, what you see now is a lot of overlap. Once you get to the chief of staff, right? If it's a chief of staff who came from the campaign, came from the communication side, you start to see a lot of that mixed together. But in other offices and other operations, it's very siloed between policy, communications, and then the chief of staff or the campaign side.
I also want to know, too, your book is called Climbing the Hill, but we should be clear, it came out in 2018.
It did,
right?
Yes.
And what was the impetus for this book? And I'd love you to talk a little bit about your co-author.
Oh, thank you very much. So my co-author is Jamie Harrison, and he is a Democrat from South Carolina, and he ran the floor for Jim Clyburn when he was the House Democratic whip in the House. So I knew Jamie because I was working for Mr. Blunt on the Republican side, and he was working for Mr. Clyburn on the Democratic side. We just knew of each other. After we left the Hill, we had a couple opportunities to work together, and I invited him to speak to a young group of low-income students from South Carolina. and Jamie moved them. They were moved. I saw young people's eyes open up after what he talked about. And so we got coffee a couple weeks after that, and Jamie asked me, he said, do you give advice to young people looking for jobs on the Hill? And I was like, yeah, probably 2 to 3 to 4 coffees a week. And he was like, I do that too. What do you tell him? He told me what he shares. I shared what I shared, and he said, we should write this in a book. Because there's not a guide at the time we couldn't find that was a practitioner's guide to how do you get a job on the Hill? How do you make this a career? Where do you go? How do you move up? And so we spent a lot of time together writing this book. Now I'll say we first started writing it 2015, 2016.
Yeah.
We wrote it, we shopped it around, and we were told no across the board. So just for anyone out there watching, don't give up, because we wrote it, we had it done, and then in 2017, 2018, we got a deal and we published it. The reason we're talking about it now today, a lot of colleges and universities are using it for their classrooms, right? It's part of their syllabus, and so we will get calls to come in and talk to the group, and man, I feel good about this country, I feel good about democracy just from who we're meeting with in some of these classrooms.
So to the young people watching, what is the number one thing they should be doing? The person who's just gotten their first job on the Hill, what's your major takeaway?
I'm going to give you 2. I know you said 1. People are watching, right? People are watching. Your chief of staff's watching, but also the interns watching. And your reputation becomes what you trade. It becomes your currency in this town. So people are watching. The other thing I would do is take time and reach out, right? A lot of people on the Hill, you get access, right? Like you can take people on tours, you can get invitations to things, take people with you. There's always a younger person who's moving to Washington that just came here and all they knew how to do was just get to Capitol Hill. Those are the people that you can help. And I had some advice in my early 20s. They said, be careful who you're hanging out with, because this crowd's going to run the city in 10 years and they'll run the country in 20. And I'm like, no, you don't know the people I'm hanging out with. We're wasting too much time in Georgetown and Capitol Lounge on the Hill. And sure enough, in 10 years, you start to see like, oh, he ran for office, and oh, she's a TV anchor and has her own show. And then in 20 years, you start to see, oh, that staff assistant is a CEO, or that former intern is now a member of Congress who is a ranking member in the House. So these are all true stories that happen.
And that's true of Jamie Harrison.
It's true of Jamie. I mean, we were on our book tour and Jamie said, I think I'm going to run for Senate. I was like, okay, sure. And then he showed me a campaign video, and then he started raising a lot of money. So he left our book tour, Jamie, to go run for Senate in South Carolina. And following that run, he became the chairman of the Democratic National Committee. So he used the book to launch his career. But what we're doing now is we're going to do a refresh of his experience working at the DNC and what Capitol Hill taught him and what we can bring to a next edition of this book. Probably this spring or fall, that's what we're working on the timing.
So we also talk to young people all the time, obviously more in journalism. And combining your 2 answers, I mean, what I talk about is relationships.
Sure.
The value of those, the value of those relationships, that the people who you meet now will be important down the road. But also, go out and meet new people.
Yes.
Republicans, Democrats, for us, lobbyists, trade associations, members of Congress, chiefs of staff, because they're all going to move up. And if you meet one new person a week, if you can find 1 hour to have a breakfast, lunch, coffee, drink, everyone can find 1 hour and meet one new person a week. In a year, that's 50 people. In 2 years, that's 100 people. And all of a sudden, you're building your network. And you don't need to be established to do that. You can do that at 22.
Yeah.
Yes.
And those are the people who 20 years later are members of Congress.
Yes.
Or they're running a newspaper, or they're running a trade association, or they're running Ducks, right?
The advice I would give to a young person now is you don't have to do this all on your own. Find a partner in crime, find 2 partners in crime, and say you invite 3 people, you invite 4, and we're going to have dinner tomorrow night, right? Or give some people. If you start convening, so what I would like to do, I would mix together downtown staff, congressional staff, Republicans, Democrats, members of the media, right? And we would put them all together, and it worked. And so we started doing this 15 years ago. I'm still doing it today professionally. So we will have clients who will come to us and say, we really need to have this conversation with this group of people, some elected officials, some journalists. Could you convene that? And so what we learned on Capitol Hill, getting softball teams together and congressional baseball parties together, actually works 15, 20 years later in the professional world.
One of the things I think is so interesting about the Hill is like there's almost 2 ecosystems, right?
Okay.
There's lawmakers,
yes,
and I think particularly in the modern political moment, there's this perception that it's very contentious, it's very polarizing. But then there's the staff ecosystem, and in so many ways, staff has always been much more collegial, much more bipartisan, because as any good staff would tell you, that's where a lot of the work gets done up here. And I wonder if you still, in the experience of being up here and talking to staffers, is that still true? And I think particularly in the committees like appropriations,
sure,
armed services, Senate finance, like the chairman and ranker might not get along, but those staff directors and those lawyers, like they all know how to get around a table and write a piece of legislation.
I can only speak from experience, and right now we're working with the group, the Gulf South Business Roundtable, that's trying to recruit just global investment, industrial investment to the Gulf South. These 5 states have come together and these companies have come together. And now there's a caucus on Capitol Hill. And so these are offices, Republican, Democrat, who are beating each other to death in the press. And their staff are working together because they know this is good for the region. They know this is good for their state and the state next to them. And so that still exists. It's not talked about. It's not in the media coverage a lot just because it serves no purpose for that office, right? When I was on Capitol Hill, it was okay to reach across the aisle and have a meeting. Now it could get you primary. But it still exists on a staff level, and that was from 2 weeks ago.
I'm also curious, and this is going to make me sound like a boomer because I don't know what the kids are doing these days, but Brody and I both grew up as young reporters, I would almost say, when it was still an analog world. Like, I remember getting a BlackBerry. I remember all of these innovations. The internet was not what it was today. And we had a lot more forward, front-facing relationships and communications with staffers. I mean, you met in person all the time. You went out to dinner a lot. And I don't know, the modern world, 1, doesn't require it, but 2, I don't know if there is still that level of in-person socialization. I mean, not with staff amongst themselves, but staff and, say, reporters, or staff and advocates, or any of the people that they might have to interact with in their day-to-day jobs.
I think it's always changing. When I was a young staffer 22, 23 years ago, many, many years ago, the chief counsel would talk about it didn't used to be like this, right? Like, they used to go and drink after their spouses were friends and they were part. So when I was coming up, they said it never used to be like this. It's so partisan now. And now I'm the boomer saying it used to be a lot nicer.
Yeah.
But I do think a lot of that's fallen off. When I talk with young journalists and I talk with young communication staff, and I ask them, how often are you grabbing coffee, how often are you doing drinks? I don't think it happens nearly as much as it used to. And I would argue I don't think it happens as much as it should. If you're a sports fan and you watch the Yankees and the Red Sox, right? They don't like each other. The fans don't like each other. The owners don't like each other. But if you see the superstar get walked to first base, the first baseman puts his glove up and they have a talk, right? So the superstars can reach across the aisle. The superstars can have that conversation. Meanwhile, everything else may just be noise. That's how we've always looked at it. Like, it takes some guts to go out there and do that, but that's why you're batting fourth.
Amos, you wrote the book with Jamie Harrison. Your son Harrison just got into Gonzaga High School. I want to give him a shout. I'm wearing my purple for him
Thank you very much, Brody.
We have about a minute to go. Tell us about your work with the National Press Foundation.
Absolutely. I've been involved with the Press Foundation for over a decade. They have an annual dinner that raises a lot of money that trains young journalists. So they run programs throughout the year that's just training young journalists, and they're hearing from veterans who've been here 5, 10, 15 years. I think the National Press Foundation is more important today as newsrooms continue to shrink, right? So whereas when you two were coming up, there were people you could talk to who've done this 10, 15 years. That doesn't exist in some newsrooms now. So that's where organizations like the Press Foundation really play a key role.
And you're involved with their annual fundraising?
I'm involved with I co-chaired their annual dinner. It's in February. We'd love to have all of your viewers and listeners join us, and we'll make sure that we send you information on it.
Amos, thanks for joining us. So your book, Climbing the Hill with Jamie Harrison, is coming out again soon. Thanks for joining us. Amos Snead from Ducks, Sue Davis, Brody Mullins on 535. Thanks for joining us.